It is a good question, and I'm not sure they ever really had a full-on plan for all the inside linebackers that they accumulated. But one of the things Chip Kelly always says about these issues is kind of like, let's wait till the game and see who's actually available. And yesterday was a light practice because it was kind of the beginning of their work week and everything. Today they were really getting into a full regular length practice to get ready for the Dallas game, and DeMeco Ryans did not practice today. So that was the first sign that he has a hamstring injury that kind of bothered him in the Carolina game, and he did not practice again. So, that helps to solve the problem right away. If you don't have DeMeco Ryans, and all of a sudden you have Alonzo, Michael Kendricks, and Jordan Hicks again in a three-man rotation at inside linebacker. Eventually, presumably, there will be all four guys healthy, and they'll have to figure out what to do at that point. Defensive coordinator Bill Davis today basically said, when it happens, when we get those guys all together, then we'll deal with the problem. It's better to have too many players than too few. But basically, it's going to be an issue. I mean, guys like Ryans, he's a guy that likes to be on the field almost every down if he can. At some point it's going to be kind of tough. But the way the injuries have sort of fallen, they've had at least one guy out all the time. So there'll be another guy out probably Sunday in Dallas.
Yeah, and I know that all of those guys offer something a little uniquely different, and Hicks wasn't really in the mix back then, but I guess it'd be pretty hard-pressed to get him out of the lineup the way he's played.
No, I agree. I mean, that's the other thing Davis said today is that, he wasn't really in the conversation. It was how do we find playing time for three linebackers, and Hicks wasn't really in that conversation at the beginning of the season. They just viewed him as a rookie. He'd play special teams, fill in if needed, and just get some experience and sort of develop. But the way he's played, he now would kind of force the conversation to change. They now have four guys that really would demand a certain amount of playing time. But the other thing that Davis said was kind of interesting. I hadn't really thought of it. Looking at the whole picture, was that pretty much all the linebackers are in on various special teams assignments and stuff. So if a guy's on the kickoff coverage team, for example, he runs downfield to cover a kickoff, you can just keep him out for the beginning, at least the beginning of the next series, and let somebody else play in that spot. So you always have a fresh guy in there. That's not going to, account for the, fair playing time for four different guys at two different spots. But the other possibility as they go along here is that, especially like Kendricks and Alonzo are guys who can play outside in certain situations as well. They're both decent pass rushers, guys who can cover a tight end if you need them to. So there are chances that along if everybody gets healthy and they're kind of clogged in terms of playing time in the middle, that some of those guys, especially Kendricks and Alonzo, could move outside in certain situations and be effective and be on the field in different ways. So that would give them more good players in different situations, when they're all healthy. One thing David said, though, because of the injuries and because they haven't really had everybody, all out there all together at any one given time, they haven't really gotten to do that. They haven't had a chance for guys to kind of, evolve into different, packages and learn new things. They're still kind of stuck in the base stuff that they've learned at the beginning of the season in training camp, because that's all the time they've had to play. So as they get together, you'll see guys playing in a little different situations. You see 3 or 4 of those guys on the field at one time, even occasionally. But everybody's got to be healthy and playing regularly for that to ever happen.
Phil Sheridan, ESPN.com, NFL Nation, the Eagles and the Cowboys. I know Ryan Matthews said that the backup role doesn't bother me. Number one, do you believe him? And number two, do you anticipate that role changing over the course of the final 9 weeks of this season at all?
That would be interesting to watch. I don't know the answer to the second part. I really don't know if Kelly's just saying what he thinks is the right thing to say now, which is kind of we're going to go with the plan we have, and the plan that they have is they consider a good plan, so they're not going to change it. But meanwhile, you have guys. Pat Shermer today was talking about DeMarco Murray and said, well, he's a lot healthier than he was earlier in the year. Well, he was never. He did miss a game with a hamstring injury that we were told about, but otherwise, no one said he was hurt. But now we're being told that he's healthier than he was. So things like that are a constant factor in this situation. One thing that Ryan Matthews kind of confirmed was what Kelly said after the Carolina game, which was that he was also dealing with a hamstring injury, and he was, or maybe that was a groin, but he had an injury, a minor injury that was affecting him in the game, so they kind of held him out a little bit. He came out and ran at 63 yards for a touchdown and looked incredibly fast and athletic doing so. But, Matthews acknowledged that was a problem for him. He wasn't sure that, even as he's running for the touchdown, he wasn't sure that his leg was going to, go out on him and the muscle was going to be, a factor. So he got through the run, and they kind of kept him out of the game the rest of the way. But for the outside world, you don't know about the injury. You wonder how a guy runs 63 yards for a touchdown and disappears and never gets another carry. But if what's going on the field is that, he's telling Deuce Staley, the running backs coach, hey, I'm a little bit worried about this. I got through that run, but it's bothering me. You shut him down, keep him healthy. That makes a lot of sense in the big picture, but it looks very strange from the outside. And it did look strange, and Kelly's explanation sounded a little fishy. But, Matthews is at least backing it up. Whether it's true or not, that's anybody's guess.
There's a lot of time between now and the bye week to come up with that, collaborate that story, I guess. Phil Sheridan's with us here. Of course, the Eagles get ready for this Cowboys team that they obviously struggled in the first time. They are having their own issues, Phil, but the issues that the Eagles had was they couldn't move the ball last time. So Romo or not, is this still a tough matchup for Philadelphia? That Cowboys defense is pretty good.
It is a tough matchup, and I've been watching from afar since that Eagles game. Just figuring eventually the Cowboys will get this figured out. I mean, they're not going to lose every game without Tony Romo. I don't think that's the way it's going to go down. They don't seem to have had a really great plan at backup quarterback, which is that's a fundamental flaw in your building of a team. One thing the Eagles have done pretty smartly the last few years is make sure they at least have two quarterbacks. Kelly talks about it. Andy Reid talked about it before him. You're going to need two eventually, so you better have two. They went with Brandon Whedon for a while. They have Matt Kessler now that they brought in off the street, basically. But you got to figure that at some point, especially with Des Bryant coming back now, that offense is going to start to click a little bit. They just can't lose every game. Unfortunately for the Eagles, they have lost every game since then. And if you hold the belief that eventually they're going to get it together, then there's a chance that this is the week that they do so. But meanwhile, yeah, you're right. The defense completely shut the Eagles down. Sam Bradford said today, he had to watch that tape to, kind of get ready for the Cowboys this time, and it was just really hard to watch. He said it didn't get any prettier since September 20th when, the Cowboys held them, to 260 yards roughly of total offense, 7 yards rushing, completely. That was the total. Eagles 17 rushes, 7 yards. I mean, that's, for a team that prides itself on running the ball and stresses the run game, that's humiliating to do what they did in that game. Dallas seemed to just have a real feel for where the gaps are going to be in the Eagles' blocking schemes and how to, kind of penetrate and get back there and break up running plays. Whether that was the Eagles' offensive line playing poorly, which the Eagles now say, or whether that was Dallas really knowing their offense really well and having kind of solved it and figured out how to break it up, that will be something we find out on Sunday night, I guess. But yeah, that defense has been very successful against Eagles offense in the last two games. It's a weird rivalry. I mean, since Kelly's been here, the home team has lost every game. The team on the road has won every game, which would help the Eagles in this case. But that's just not the way it usually goes when play twice a year like this. It's really odd. And they've been one-sided games one way or the other. Last year, the Eagles on Thanksgiving Day just dominated Dallas, looked really good. It's probably the high point of the Eagles' season. And then in December, the game that mattered most, as Jordan Matthews said today, the Eagles didn't really show up in that game and got hammered. So, if Cowboys got theirs in Philadelphia, if form holds, the Eagles should be in pretty good shape. They still don't have Tony Romo. There's every reason for the Eagles to be able to be in this game and to dominate it. The Eagles are talking about coming out of the bye feeling like they've got, some answers for some things, and they really want to, kind of like fix the problems that they had in the first half of the season. If they're able to do that, it should be an interesting game Sunday.
Phil Sheridan's with us, ESPN.com, NFL Nation, and the Eagles and the Cowboys, as you wrote over at ESPN.com, Phil, that the habits of Sam Bradford could be leading to some of the drop passes. Can you explain some of that to our listeners?
Yeah, well, the idea I was getting to was that, there's been a lot of talk, especially this week, about, Bradford and the receivers and the tight ends kind of building trust in each other, kind of finding, a comfort level with each other, getting their chemistry to kind of to go, in a positive way. And one of the things that's part of that, when a quarterback trusts receivers, he throws to them, and that's how he shows his confidence in the guys that are around him. Well, when a receiver has confidence in a quarterback, that can be, that can look like different things. And to me, one of the things I wonder about is early in the season, it seemed like there were a lot of balls that Bradford threw where, he kind of led the receiver into a hit, like the receivers are being led into contact. And if you do that a couple times, I got to wonder if maybe the receivers, and they say no, and that's not a factor, that's not a problem. So I'm not really, I don't know if they would answer that, truthfully. If it was a factor, maybe I'm just wrong about it. But my thought was that, hey, if you're Jordan Matthews and you think you're about to get your a defensive back's helmet in your spine as you're catching the ball, that just might disrupt your confidence enough for the occasional drop pass. So the fact that all these drops are happening and they're all different players dropping the ball, the constant in there is the quarterback. I don't think as Jordan Matthews said today, it's a drop if the ball is well thrown. I mean, if it's in your hands, if you can catch it, then it's a drop. So the only balls that are dropped are good throws by the quarterback. But if guys aren't sure that the quarterback's got that knack for avoiding contact for his men, and that's great quarterbacks do that. Like a guy like Tom Brady, where he throws the ball is where the receiver can get it, and it leads him where there's room to run. When guys aren't quite on target or the chemistry's not quite right, then you lead a guy into a place where he's going to get his helmet knocked off. Receivers tend to notice that because how can they not? And they tend to maybe be a little more aware of other things around them than just the football. So it's a theory, it's a thought. I don't know that there's any proof and there's any way to prove it. But when you watch those guys, a lot of the drops seem to happen too. Balls that are kind of over the middle, kind of short. I mean, those are most of the passes that Bradford throws, so that's going to happen anyway. And that could be just all that is. But those are also the places where guys tend to get hit by safeties and defensive backs who are kind of, or linebackers even, who are coming in to support maybe be the second guy in coverage. So it's a thought, it's a possibility. We'll see as it goes going forward, and keep an eye on it and see if it develops the things they can break these habits and get out of this whole kind of rut they're in, or if it continues and we start to see some more patterns emerge.
Yeah, and one thing when I watch a team like Carolina, they don't have great weapons, but they really utilize Olsen, and he is a very good tight end. Could the Eagles expand the role of Zach Ertz and make him be the focal point of their offense, similar to what the Panthers do with a guy like Olsen?
Yeah, it's a possibility, and especially with where things are going right now. I mean, Nelson Aguilar, rookie wide receiver, he looks like he's going to play this week. He's missed a couple games with a high ankle sprain. But, the first stretch of the season there, I mean, he's got 8 catches for 104 yards, which would be a nice game for a wide receiver. But that's his whole season so far, and he's just, it's just not there for him yet. And it's complicated because in Kelly's offense, a lot of the plays that are run, there's not like this guy's, we're going to this receiver on this play. It's, it's the quarterback making reads, quarterback deciding whether to hand off or throw. There's a progression on each play where he's got to kind of look around, and the receivers are, expected to come open in a certain order, but the quarterback has to make decisions. I feel like he wasn't getting open enough. So, with Jordan Matthews dropping the ball a lot and Aguilar not really making an impact yet, Riley Cooper and Miles Austin are kind of who they are. Neither one of those guys is really scaring anybody that much, I don't think. So, yeah, there's a guy like Ertz, and he even said this week he'd kind of like to be, in the running to be a focal point in this offense. He spent a lot of time in the offseason improving his blocking, trying to learn from people. so that he could be on the field more, and which would enable him, to be, involved in running plays where he's blocking, but also be on the field for more of these kind of, option plays where the quarterback can decide whether to run or throw, and be a guy who's on the field and able to get open. So, but he got hurt in training camp. He had this muscle tear and a core muscle. That kept him out of the preseason pretty much entirely, and so he didn't really have a lot of time to develop any kind of chemistry or relationship with Bradford. And even in the first couple of games of the season, Ertz said the other day that, because of the injury, he was coming back from the surgery. He wasn't really, it was taking him a couple of days to get over each game, and he wasn't really feeling 100%. So he's only lately started to feel like himself. It's only now that we're starting to see Ertz kind of at full speed. And if he and Bradford can develop that chemistry, a great tight end is a real, you think back to like when Chad Lewis was, every time Donovan McNabb got in any kind of trouble or uncomfortable in a situation, there was always Chad Lewis there, 8 to 10 yards downfield, wide open somehow, a little spot in the zone. Ertz can be that kind of guy for Bradford, but they're only finding it now midway through the season. We'll see how that develops. He is a guy, he has 0 touchdown catches, for example. I mean, Ertz is a guy that you would expect, I know everybody who picked him in their fantasy team expected him to be a guy, to get in the end zone a little bit. And I would still expect that from Ertz before the season's over. So it'll be an interesting guy to watch the next few weeks.
Well, and I guess we all remember that 15-catch game he had late in the year last year, and you'd say, look, he's got it in him that he can be a dynamic weapon for you. You wonder how come they don't go right back to that kind of game plan to get him involved for him to be that kind of weapon. Phil Sheridan's with us, and as you wrote over at ESPN.com, some free advice for Chip Kelly. So we're coming out of the bye week, Phil. What would that be if you had the chance to sit down with Chip in a room?
Yeah, well, mostly what I was getting at was, he's got to make some decisions here to kind of, the easy thing to call for is, a change at quarterback. I'm not going down that road. I saw Mark Sanchez play half a season, and I saw him before that with the Jets. And, he's a good, solid backup quarterback, and he's one of these guys that, you see around the league. If he has to start some games for you, it's not going to get you killed. But I don't know that there's a future there. I mean, he's the guy that's going to lead this team to a Super Bowl. So, I'm all for sticking with Bradford for now, trying to ride this out, find out exactly what you can get out of him. So stick with Bradford, but make it easier on him. They've thrown the ball 60% of the time against 40% running plays. This is a team that wants to run the ball and stick with the run and make the run the focal point of their offense, then do it. Get closer to 50%. I'm not saying 70% runs and 30% throws, but get closer to 50%. That means more carries for Ryan Matthews, 2 more carries for Darren Sproles, and of course it gets Murray involved a little more, and also takes some of the pressure off Bradford in the passing game. And the other thing I thought of was that it'd be really good to see this offense start to find ways to get a wide receiver or a tight end. Like you mentioned, Ertz. I thought of Aguilar. I think he's a rookie. It's about midway through the season when rookies start to kind of get they've already played almost a full college season in the NFL now, and they have half a season to go. So if Aguilar's healthy, get him out there. Get the ball to him. Find ways to get him the ball and throw him. Throw to him. Look for him. They did that with Deshaun Jackson when he was here. They did it with Macklin last year. I think Aguilar is the one guy out of that group that can really be that kind of receiver. Yeah. So, start using him that way. And the thing I really thought of was on the defensive side. The defense has been better than we expected. The secondary's held up, and it looks pretty good. They created a lot of turnovers, and that's a positive thing. But, maybe they could get, if the secondary is going to be that solid, then maybe they can start taking a few more risks. I mean, they really haven't blitzed much at all. Phil Davis is stuck with the 4-man rush and let the 7 guys in coverage kind of, prevent those big plays that were giving up so much last year. Maybe take a few more risks, try to make defense. Because, the offense has struggled so far, and turnovers are good, but turnovers, deep in the other team's territory are that much better. So maybe be a little more aggressive, take a few more chances, especially with these linebackers coming back healthy. If those guys are all out there and they're all ready to go, there's some playmakers, so maybe start taking advantage of that a little bit. But otherwise, you just have to kind of hope Sam Bradford plays better, and that's not very, doesn't sound like great coaching. We're going to hope Sam Bradford plays better, but that's probably the key to the whole second half of the season.
Yeah, well, and yesterday Chip said the biggest problem, it seemed like the biggest issue has been the drops and the lack of execution. So it sounds as if he believes that Bradford, because we wonder, is he just sticking up for Bradford? Is he covering for him? Is Bradford playing well enough that it's as simple as if we catch the football when it's thrown to us, that we will be a better football team?
Yeah, well, there's certainly an element of that. I mean, you know, when you look at the numbers, I mean, if those are all catches and they're all, you know, I mean, or 20 of them are catches, there's 20 more catches there. You know, how many more yards is that? I mean, how many more big plays could that be? How many touchdowns might there be? And some of those drops turned into interceptions as well. So, you know, they weren't just, you know, lost down; they were lost possessions. So, you know, that's all true. But those things happen in football. I mean, and you know, there's a lot going on any given play. You know, I mean, the one that Matthews kind of was sort of a drop. Bradford threw it. It was a short pass. Bradford was under pressure. He threw it way too hard for where, you know, Matthews was, and it bounced on Matthews' hands and became an interception in Carolina. That was, you know, that was a perfect example. Here's, you know, the pass rush got there. The pass protection wasn't good enough. The quarterback threw too hard for a guy that was just a few yards away from him. The receiver didn't catch the ball. You know, like three things broke down on the Eagles side before, you know, it suddenly becomes an interception for the Panthers. So, you know, you can correct those mistakes and make things better. But overall, I think, you know, you're not going to jettison the entire offense here. That's not what Chip Kelly's about to do. But he can balance it out a little more. You know, again, run the ball a little more, control a little more clock. He's married to this hurry up thing, and that's fine. But that doesn't mean you can't run the ball a little more and, you know, have more manageable situations, like, you know, your third downs, for example. If you do better on first and second down, you know, it's not 3rd and 8 all the time. You know, you can get a little more done on offense. So there are things he can do without, you know, throwing the entire system out the window. Within what he wants to do system-wise, there are things Kelly can do a little bit better, a little bit differently to kind of minimize the mistakes and maximize the things the Eagles do well.
All right, big week, obviously. Phil Sheridan, ESPN.com, NFL Nation's got plenty more on this game. He joins us every Wednesday here on The Bash as we take a look at this Eagles-Cowboys rivalry moving forward. Phil, it's always a pleasure. Great stuff, pal.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Enjoyed it.